Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. France is once again facing political turbulence. Prime Minister François Bayrou has lost today's confidence vote, a defeat that could force President Emmanuel Macron to either call snap elections or appoint his fifth Prime Minister in less than 2 years. What lies behind this latest upheaval and how might it shape France's role within the European Union and its commitment to supporting Ukraine? Well, joining us to explore these questions is Professor Karolina Borońska. She's an Associate Research Fellow at the Sorbonne University in Paris. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Pleasure.
All right, so talk us through it. What happened? What was the vote of confidence all about? And why do you think he lost?
Maybe let's start from the fact that we've been there and we've done that. I mean, this is not the first time during the very short period lately that the government of France is failing and that president has to appoint a new one. But this is the first time in the Fifth Republic, so from late 50s, that the government failed because the Prime Minister asked for the vote of confidence. It's not a vote of censure that was imposed by the outside parties, opposition parties, but actually we could say Bayrou asked for it.
So he wanted Parliament's approval for his policy? For
his budgetary plans, for his fiscal policies, for basically presenting France and the European Union with a new credible budget, including a lot of cuts, because we know that France is hugely indebted, has very high public deficit. It's been a cumulative policy for many years and it has to be somehow repaired. So Bayrou was pretty ambitious in that. Unfortunately, in my opinion, but also many commentators have seen that, he didn't consult widely and democratically enough, and probably that is also the reason that this motion of no confidence, because we can call it this way, has got such broad support, because he was outvoted by a higher amount of parliamentarians than his predecessor, Michel Barnier. So it really shows the frustration, but it also shows a huge political weakness of French class, French parliamentary democracy as well. And this is a big shame, because France is the second largest economy in the EU, and we are still again facing unpredictability.
Well, what is the underlying feature of French politics that has resulted in such a, 4 prime ministers in 2 years?
Maybe I will not be very popular, but I would actually blame Macron for that particular course of action. Let's go a little bit back to 2024, this snap elections that were called by Macron after he lost European elections. He dissolved the National Assembly, and I will never forget what he actually said at that point. I said, okay, you have voted for the far right at the European Parliament elections. I now would like you to take responsibility for your own country, and I want to give you back the voice. So the people, the sovereign, will decide. So let's remind what were the results. The results of that July snap elections 2024 were that the wide coalition of the left parties have actually gained the most amount of votes. Did he ever propose a left-wing prime minister until today? No. He actually went for conservatives, he went for Barnier, and then he went for centrist. Maybe now, this cold shower again. However, he expected that to happen, but maybe this time he will look to the left, and that would be a natural democratic decision to actually save his face and also save the country's culture of compromise.
Well, actually, it's interesting that you mentioned the left, because I have a soundbite that I want to share with you, and then I'll get your view on it. I think it's just coming up.
The France Unbowed parliamentary group will file a motion tomorrow to impeach the President of the Republic, because the problem for the country and the deadlock for the country is him. And starting from September 10th, we will be everywhere alongside French men and women who will block the country's economy to say enough is enough.
Right, so that was Mathilde Panot, she's parliamentary leader of France Unbowed.
But that's actually a very radical spectrum of the left, which is marginalized to a large extent, and we're not actually even considering, as analysts and commentators, that they could gain power at this moment. It's rather that Macron should look for the moderates from the left wing, meaning socialists. And there are several personalities there, including Olivier Faure, for example, the Secretary General, who are people who have the capacity and potential to actually unite a broader spectrum, broader coalition. Because what's at stake now? It is now the only possible way, without Macron resigning, is basically trying to put people at the table and say, agree on some sort of a program that will save the country's finance, country's budget, wages of the people, etc., and calm this turmoil that will not provoke motion of censure. So it doesn't have to be a really governing coalition that agrees on everything, but it has to be a very respectful way of gathering this broader coalition, including the left. So the Macronists have to step back a little bit at this point and maybe show, even taking this very, I would say, strategic choice approach. Okay, let the left govern and let them maybe fail. But even if they put forward some unpopular, too populist, as for the center, reforms, it will be their reforms.
Yes, but can the French economy afford those kinds of reforms?
But you know, speaking about the left, you don't necessarily have to think about those who always want to redistribute and give away, but they want to redistribute in a different way. For example, Bayrou was, because he's a Macronist, he's not there anymore, he was not enough focused on how to, for example, increase taxes on the rich, on bigger fortunes, on huge fortunes in France, and not to discourage that part of the electorate. Instead, imposing more burdens on those working classes. Also, huge corporations, they require to be taxed. There are other examples. Okay, the réforme des retraites, so this is pensions reform. We can argue, of course, we have to work longer, right, for the country competitiveness to pick up. But maybe let's negotiate. Okay, we go 1 year up and you go 1 year down, but let's just push things forward. Let's not be dogmatic. And first of all,
is that a realistic proposition, the way you see things at the moment?
Is my proposition realistic?
Yeah.
Well, I think that he has no choice because his Republican prime minister failed. Very badly. His centrist prime minister failed. Now he has two options. He either looks to Le Pen and says, okay, guys, you have now the strongest position as a single party, or he does what he promised at the very beginning, saying, okay, the left coalition without France Insoumise, so without those radicals there who have really quite radical ideas, not only about economy, but also about foreign policy, for example, and help to Ukraine. But looking at the moderate spectrum, it is possible to gather enough of votes, looking at Republicans, looking at the centrists, with all the parties within Macronist spectrum, and also the left, to create, I would say, national responsibility government.
Right, okay.
Responsive.
Okay. Well, we'll obviously be watching how that works out. But what does this mean for France's foreign policy and its standing within the European Union?
Well, obviously, this is not the best week for the French government to fall, because on Wednesday, President of the European Commission will deliver her State of the Union, talking about how Europe has to get its grip, how to become more competitive, help Ukraine invest in armaments. And here we have the second largest economy and probably the most important political player, because Macron is definitely on the international scene, being so weakened. So it's strategically very uncomfortable position for Macron to then go to Brussels and tell everybody what to do if he is unable to get his people on board in his own political playground spectrum. So that's one thing. In terms of economy, I think that maybe it sounds ironic, but European Union is already used to the French indebtedness and very tolerant towards that as well. We have to say that at the moment, public debt and public deficit are almost doubled as the Maastricht criteria. So it's not looking very good. But on the other hand, you know, France is too powerful to fall. This is not going ever to be the French case. The Eurozone is also stronger. So there are, you know, checks and balances to kind of stabilize the situation. Plus, I have to say that, you know, if you look at the economy, it's still growing. It's not a stagnation. The economy is growing, but it really needs reforms to give it a boost.
Yes, but it sounds like it's still very much on the edge. It could go either way.
It's been for quite a while,
It has
right?
been for quite a while, exactly. And this government falling hasn't helped. In terms of Ukraine, do you think there's going to be any change to France's policy of support for Ukraine?
I don't think so. First of all, Macron is going to make sure that his next prime minister goes along the line. However, what's important here is that foreign policy, security policy are the domain of the president. And this is Macron and his strategy, how he's going to pull things through. And we know very well that he's one of the strongest supporters of Ukraine, very willing to give strong guarantees for peace as well. So he's not going to, I think he's going to protect that area from any sort of fractures that might come from the inside for this moment.
So foreign policy-wise, we don't expect too many changes. We just need them to get their house in order in France.
And to stay credible on this economic political scene, right?
And that requires it sounds like quite a broad coalition that you're suggesting.
That's the only way out.
Would work.
That's the only, or snap elections as well, but he's not going to do that because that would obviously create another situation of instability.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Professor Borońska, thank you so much for sharing your analysis with our audience and taking the time to join us in the studio.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks. Don't go away though, lots more coming up. Goodbye.